The sky turned red, then black. Emma gripped the seat as her spaceship shook violently. Alarms screamed in her ears. She couldn't see clearly, just flashes of warning lights. The control screen showed a spinning storm of meteors heading straight toward her ship. She tried to steer, but it was too late. The ship was already breaking apart. Metal cracked, lights exploded, and the ship spun out of control. She screamed as the ship crashed into a planet she didn't recognize. The noise was deafening. Then, everything went dark when Emma opened her eyes. She was lying on the cold floor of the ship's broken front section. Her head throbbed. Her hands were bleeding. She sat up slowly, every part of her body aching. The walls were cracked. Half the ship was missing. She looked outside, nothing but a silent, dead desert. No trees, no sun. Only a strange red sky and black rocks. Emma checked the radio. It was dead. She pressed the emergency beacon. Nothing, no signal, no help, no sound, only her own breathing. Then, she heard a sound not from the ship, but from outside, a low growl, soft and weak. She picked up a metal rod and walked toward the noise. Behind a piece of broken wing, she saw something strange. It was a creature, not human, but not a beast. Either blue skin, long arms, and golden eyes. It was bleeding badly, but still alive. It looked at her with fear and pain. Emma took a step back, unsure what to do. Should she help it? Was it dangerous? But then she saw it trying to stand, then fall. It was weak, just like her. Maybe it had crashed too. She looked around again. This place was empty. If she left it there, it would die. And maybe she would too. Emma dragged the creature into the half-broken ship. She gave it some water and wrapped its wound with cloth from her uniform. It didn't speak her language, and she didn't understand it either. But when it looked at her, there was something in its eyes, something like, "Thanks." Night came quickly. The temperature dropped fast, freezing cold. Emma shivered and pulled a piece of fabric around herself. The alien creature lay near the corner. Also shaking from the cold, she hesitated, then dragged it closer to her. Body warmth was the only thing they had left. Two strangers from two different worlds, lying close to stay alive. The wind howled outside. Sand blew against the wreckage. Emma stared at the stars through a crack in the roof. So many stars, but none close enough to help. She whispered to herself, "Where am I?" There was no answer, only silence in the morning. Emma woke up to the sound of the alien coughing. Its wound was still bleeding, but less than before. She needed to find food and more water. The emergency pack had a few rations, barely enough. For one person for 2 days. Now it had to be shared. She broke a ration bar in half and handed one piece to the alien. It sniffed it, then ate slowly. They chewed in silence, both watching each other carefully. Later that day, she tried to fix the radio again, but it was useless. The power cells were burned. She kicked the panel in frustration. Tears filled her eyes. She was stuck, lost on a dead planet with no idea how to survive. And the only other living soul was a creature she didn't even know. But then she heard a soft sound like humming. She turned and saw the alien drawing something on the floor with its claw. A round shape, a tall figure, and then another shape beside it. It looked like two people standing under the same sun. Emma blinked. Was it trying to talk? Was it trying to show her something? She walked closer and drew a simple earth next to its drawing. The alien tilted its head, then nodded slowly. A small connection was made, not with words, but with pictures, signs, looks. It wasn't much, but it was something. In this silent world, even a small bond could be powerful. That night, they sat beside each other in the dark. No more fear, just quiet understanding. Emma whispered again, "We'll survive." She didn't know if the alien understood, but it nodded anyway. And outside, the wind kept blowing. But inside the wreckage, two lives held on to hope, together. Asterisk the next morning came with a red sky and dust floating in the air. Emma sat near the broken window of the ship, her hands wrapped in cloth. Her stomach growled softly. The emergency food was almost gone. She looked at the alien, still resting, but breathing steadily now. Its wound was healing slowly. Thanks to her care, the alien opened its golden eyes and sat up with effort. It looked at her. Then at the piece of ration left on the metal floor, Emma picked it up and broke it in half, offering one part to him. He took it gently, nodding once in what looked like thanks. They ate quietly, side by side, two beings from different worlds, sharing food on a dead planet. That day, Emma decided they had to explore. They couldn't survive inside the broken ship forever. The heat was rising, and something told her this planet had more dangers than just hunger. She packed a small bag with what little tools and rations she had. The alien watched her carefully, then stood up, pointing to the horizon. Emma nodded. Yes, let's go. They walked across sharp rocks and dry soil. The sky was strange no sun, just a glowing red haze. The alien pointed to some cactus-shaped plants. He cut one open with his claw and showed her the inside. Clear water. Emma drank slowly and smiled. Thank you, she said, not knowing if he understood, but he smiled back, a slow curve of his lips. In a nearby rocky area, they found something useful: metal scraps and crystal-like stones. Emma picked them up and placed them in her bag. Maybe they could fix the solar panel or build something later. The alien gathered sharp sticks and small bones. He was building something: a trap. Maybe. She watched in silence, impressed. When night returned, they built a small shelter beside the wreckage. Rocks around the base, metal sheets for a roof. Emma lit a small fire using a spark tool and dry roots. The flame danced in the dark, giving them both a little warmth and hope. The alien sat close to the fire, holding something in his hand. He opened it. Was a small round crystal, glowing faintly blue. He placed it in the middle between them. The light pulsed gently. Emma stared at it, mesmerized. What is that? She asked softly. The alien touched the crystal, then pointed to his chest, then to the sky. Home? Maybe? A memory. Emma took out her pendant, a small silver star her mother gave her. She showed it to him. He leaned forward, studying it with interest. Then he nodded. They were different, but maybe not so different after all. The next day, they woke to strong winds. A sandstorm was forming in the distance. Dark clouds of dust rose high and fast. Emma grabbed the bag and helped the alien cover the shelter with more metal sheets. The wind howled like a beast. Shaking the walls, they crawled inside and held the covers tight. Dust filled the air, blocking out the red sky completely for hours. The storm raged. They sat close together, breathing through cloth masks. Emma's eyes burned. Her muscles ached. The alien noticed her shaking hands. He reached out slowly and placed his hand over hers. Warm, steady, when the storm finally passed. Everything was covered in dust. The wrecked ship was barely visible. But they had survived. Together, they spent the next few days working like a team. Emma collected plants, fixed the solar panel, and managed to power up a small light. The alien hunted strange crawling insects and brought back glowing fruits. They built a better roof and sealed the cracks in their walls. One evening, Emma found the alien trying to draw again. This time in the sand, he drew a large ship. Then a smaller one crashing. Then two figures, one human, one alien standing together. Emma smiled. He was telling their story. That night, as they sat by the fire, Emma whispered, "You saved me." The alien looked at her, then touched his chest and pointed at her. "You saved me." His eyes seemed to say, they didn't need the same language anymore. They had built something stronger: trust. In the days that followed, their bond grew deeper. They laughed at each other's mistakes, shared food, and even danced a little around the fire one night. It was strange and beautiful. A human and an alien, surviving a dead world by learning to live as one, but in the far distance. Something was watching them from behind the rocks, large eyes. Quiet movements, breathing low, danger was coming, and they had no idea. The nights on the planet had become colder. Emma and the alien, whom she now quietly called Kale, had learned to survive together. Their small shelter stood strong after the storm. They had fire, food, and water enough to keep living. But something had changed in the air. A strange silence, deeper than before. That night, the fog came, thick, heavy, and gray. It rolled in quietly, like a blanket of smoke. Emma had never seen it before. Kale looked uneasy, his golden eyes narrowing as he watched the mist surround them. He picked up a sharp stick wrapped in metal, his handmade spear. Emma clutched the light crystal they used during the dark hours. "I don't like this," she whispered. Kale growled softly under his breath, almost like he was warning something unseen. The fog moved strangely, like it was alive. Their fire flickered, dimmed, and almost died. Emma added more dry roots, but the flame barely returned. Everything felt wrong in the middle of the night. She woke to a sound, not wind, not storm. Something else, a low growl, deep and throaty. Then another sound, bones snapping. She sat up quickly, heart pounding. Kale was already standing near the shelter door, spear in hand. He turned his head slightly toward her and made a quiet gesture, "Stay back." Emma nodded, her hands shaking as she picked up a metal rod. The growl came again, this time closer. From the fog, a shadow moved, not walking, but crawling low and fast. It had long limbs and glowing red eyes. Too many legs, too many teeth. Emma gasped. "What is that?" Kale rushed forward, roaring louder than she had ever heard him before. He jabbed his spear into the fog. The creature screamed an ugly, sharp cry that hurt her ears. She saw flashes of movement, claws, fangs, blood. Kale's body twisted. His shoulder slashed open by a sharp claw. Emma couldn't just watch. She ran forward and swung her metal rod with all her strength. It hit the beast's head hard. The creature let out a scream and vanished back into the fog, gone as quickly as it had appeared. Kale dropped to his knees. Breathing hard, blood dripped from his wound. Emma rushed to him. "You're okay?" "You're okay," she repeated, though her voice shook. She dragged him inside the shelter, blocked the entrance with metal sheets, and tied his wound with cloth soaked in clean water. Kale groaned in pain, but didn't resist. His eyes locked. On hers grateful, Emma sat beside him, heart still racing. "What was that thing?" She whispered. He didn't answer, but from his look, she knew this planet held more than storms and silence. The next day, the fog stayed. Emma and Kale didn't leave the shelter. They listened, waited, watched. No sign of the creature, but tracks had appeared outside, deep claw marks in the dirt. It had come close again. Maybe during the night, Kale took one of the ship's broken glass panels and began drawing again. He drew a round-shaped the planet. Then smaller shapes, creatures, like the one they saw. Then a large X over them. Emma stared at it. These things, they live here? Kale nodded slowly. He drew a figure like himself, then another like her, then drew the monster between them. Emma understood. "We're in their land," she whispered. Kale looked away, his expression dark. By the third day, the fog began to lift, but something else appeared in the distance. A large black mark on the horizon. They climbed the hill behind their shelter to get a better view. What they saw froze them. A nest. A deep pit filled with bones, rotting flesh, and broken metal. And in the center, the creature they had fought, larger than before. It was eating something. Another crash survivor. Emma's stomach turned. Cale pulled her back behind the rocks. They crouched in silence. Watching, this was no accident. The creature had been hunting survivors, feeding on them as the fog cleared completely. The creature crawled back into its pit. For now, it slept. But they knew it would return, back at their shelter. Cale began building traps, spikes from metal scraps, nets made of ship wires. Emma helped him, her fear turning into purpose. They couldn't run, not yet. But they could fight back, that night, as the stars returned to the sky. Emma sat near the fire. Cale rested beside her, his wound wrapped tight. She looked at him, then whispered, "We're not alone here." He nodded, then spoke one word, in broken English. "Hunt?" She smiled sadly. "Yes," she said, "but this time, we fight back." Outside, the wind picked up again. The fog was gone, but the danger remained, still watching, still waiting. Days passed after the fog attack. Emma and Cale worked together to strengthen their shelter. They added stronger walls using parts from the broken ship. Emma even made a warning bell from old metal. If the creature came close again, they would know. The nights were still cold, but now they slept without fear. The traps were ready. The fire burned longer still. Danger wasn't the only thing growing between them. Something else was changing, slowly, quietly. Emma noticed it first when she caught Cale watching her as she lit the fire. Not with fear, not with suspicion, but with warmth. She smiled and handed him a root fruit. He smiled back. A soft expression that made her heart flutter. They didn't speak the same language, but their actions said more. Cale started bringing her the bigger share of food when Emma hurt her hand. On a sharp rock, he sat beside her for hours. He took a smooth stone and gently rubbed it against her cut. She didn't pull away. His touch was careful, respectful. They started laughing too. One day, Cale tried to mimic her English word, fire. He said fry with a confused face. Emma burst into laughter, and Cale made a fake, angry face. It made the moment lighter, even on a dead planet. Laughter was possible. Emma showed Cale how to draw letters. She wrote her name in the sandy mima. Cale watched closely, then tried to copy. His letters were messy, but she clapped her hands. Like he had done magic, he beamed with pride in return. Cale taught her how to track footsteps. He showed her which marks in the soil were from animals, which ones belonged to the beast, and which ones were safe. Emma listened carefully. Wanting to learn everything, every day, they spent more time close working, resting, learning. Then came the moment that changed everything. One quiet evening. Under the deep purple sky, they sat near the fire. Emma leaned against a rock. Tired after a long day, Cale sat beside her, holding a glowing fruit. He broke it in two and handed her one half. Their fingers touched. It was a soft moment, but powerful. Emma looked into his golden eyes. Something stirred inside her. Not fear, not confusion. Something warmer, deeper, a connection beyond survival. She whispered, "You're not just helping me, Cale. You make me feel safe." Cale tilted his head, trying to understand. She took his hand, placed it over her chest. "Safe," she repeated, then gently placed his hand over his own heart. Cale closed his eyes and nodded slowly. He understood. That night, the stars were clearer than ever. They lay on the soft sand near the shelter. Emma pointed at the sky. "Earth," she said, pointing to a bright blue star. "Home." Cale raised his finger to another corner of the sky. He said something in his own language, a soft word that sounded like music. Then tapped his chest. Emma repeated the sound, badly. They both laughed. The air felt different that night. Gentle, peaceful. Their fingers touched again longer this time. Cale moved closer, his hand brushing her cheek. Emma didn't move away. She had never imagined this, on a forgotten world with an alien. But in this quiet place where only survival mattered, something real had grown. Something neither of them planned. Love. They shared a tender moment under the stars. No words, just closeness, warmth, breath. The cold wind passed by, but they didn't feel it. Their hearts beat softly. Together, the next morning, Emma woke with a smile. Cale was already awake, watching the horizon. He turned when he heard her move and smiled. Emma placed her hand on her stomach. A small wave of nausea hit her. She pushed it aside. Cale handed her fresh fruit and a flower-shaped plant. She took it, still feeling lightheaded, but she didn't speak. Not yet. Later, as they cleaned the area and reset the traps. Emma felt dizzy again. She leaned against a rock. Breathing hard, Cale rushed to her side. His eyes filled with concern. She shook her head. "I'm okay," she whispered. But deep down, she knew something inside her was different that night. She couldn't sleep. She sat near the fire, watching the flames dance. Cale sat beside her, quiet. Emma looked at him and finally spoke. "I think I'm pregnant." Cale blinked, confused by the word. Emma placed his hand gently on her belly, then made a cradle shape with her arms. Cale's eyes widened. Silence fell between them, heavy, powerful. Then Cale placed his forehead against hers. No words, just acceptance. They didn't know what tomorrow would bring. But they knew this. They were no longer just survivors. They were something more. Emma sat quietly by the fire. Her hands rested over her stomach. The stars above blinked like tiny eyes watching her. Cale sat beside her, silent too. He didn't speak, not because he didn't care, but because words weren't enough. Emma whispered a child. Cale nodded slowly, his eyes full of wonder and fear. He had seen many strange things since the crash, but nothing stranger or more sacred than the life now growing inside her. The next morning, Emma woke up feeling weak. Her legs shook as she stood, her breath short. Cale noticed immediately and rushed to her side. She leaned on him for support. "I'm just tired," she said. But she knew it was more. Her body was changing, faster than normal. Stronger heartbeats, stronger cravings, sharper senses. The child growing inside her was not fully human. It was something new. Cale became her protector more than ever. He brought her food first, gave her the softest spot to sleep. He made her walk shorter paths, and he watched her every move. Emma didn't mind. She felt safe, even when everything else seemed uncertain. One day, Cale returned with a bundle of leaves and glowing berries. Emma tasted one, and a strange warmth filled her chest. Not just energy peace. Cale placed the leaves in a small pouch and gave it to her. A gift. She smiled and placed it around her neck. "I feel him," Emma whispered one night. They sat under the soft purple sky. Cale looked confused. She took his hand and placed it gently on her belly. A small movement, barely a flutter, but Cale's eyes widened in shock. His hand remained there, frozen. Then he looked at her, his golden eyes shining. The moment didn't need words. They were parents now. Not just survivors, but something far more sacred. But the planet didn't care. The world around them was still dry. Still dangerous. The monster in the fog hadn't returned, but Emma sensed it. It was still out there, waiting. Cale sharpened their traps and reinforced the walls. He even carved small symbols into the rocks around the shelter, his language. Maybe protection, maybe prayer. Emma rested more, but she also helped where she could. She stitched clothes from fabric remains and made a soft bed from leaves and plant fibers. She called it the baby's bed. As her belly grew, her dreams grew stranger. She saw flashes of a baby with glowing eyes, a child running across strange lands, speaking to languages, a bridge between worlds. Sometimes she woke in tears, Not from fear but from how real it all felt. Cale stayed close during those nights. He wrapped his arms around her and let her cry. He didn't need to understand the dream to feel its weight. He felt it too. One morning, a strange wind blew through the valley. The air smelled metallic, like burning rocks. Cale stood still, sensing danger. Emma felt it too. Something was coming. They climbed a nearby hill to scan the area. Far in the distance, black clouds twisted in the sky. Not a storm, something worse, smoke, and it was heading their way back. At the shelter, they prepared. Cale gathered supplies. Emma packed the food and tools. They couldn't stay there anymore, not with the smoke getting closer. They needed to move, find a safer place. Emma's hands shook as she tied the last bag. She looked at the small bed she had made and felt her heart break. They had to leave it behind. Cale placed a hand on her shoulder. She looked up at him, and he said one word, safe. Her eyes filled with tears, but she nodded. They walked through dry lands, stepping carefully over rocks and roots. Cale carried most of the weight. Emma walked slowly, holding her belly, with one hand and Cale's arm with the other. Every now and then, she felt the baby move. It reminded her she wasn't alone, not anymore. After 2 days of walking, they found it, a cave hidden between two hills. Deep, cool, and dry. Inside, there was a stream of clean water and soft moss. It was not perfect, but it was safe for now. Cale lit a fire, and Emma sat down, exhausted. She leaned her head on his shoulder, her hands still resting on her belly. Cale placed his hand over hers. The child inside kicked softly. They both felt it, and both smiled. They had lost many things: comfort, safety, even their past lives. But they had each other, and soon they would have someone else too. Emma whispered, "He's part of both of us." Cale looked into her eyes and nodded. "A gift," he said. Softly, in her language, the fire crackled. The stars returned, and in the quiet darkness, 3 hearts beat together. One human, one alien, and one that belonged to both. The cave gave them peace for a short time. Emma and Cale turned it into a quiet home. They placed soft moss where Emma could rest. Cale gathered water every day, and they both listened to the heartbeat growing inside her. It was the one thing that gave them hope, but hope alone could not stop what was coming. One morning, Emma woke to the ground, shaking at first. She thought it was just her dream, but then the cave ceiling dropped a few small stones. Cale was already standing, his golden eyes scanning the entrance. The earth rumbled again, louder, stronger. Emma stood up slowly, holding her belly. Cale rushed to her side, holding her steady. The sound came from outside, a deep thunder rolling beneath the ground. They stepped out and saw the sky. Black clouds twisted above them, spinning like a giant wheel. The red haze had turned to thick smoke. A strange light glowed in the distance. It wasn't fire, and it wasn't natural. It looked like the sky itself was burning. Cale pointed toward the north, away from the smoke. He made a quick motion with his hands. They had to move again. Emma shook her head. "I'm too tired," she whispered. But then another quake hit, nearly knocking them down. Cale looked at her with fear, but also strength. He picked up the small bag of supplies, then gently lifted Emma into his arms. She protested, but he said one word, "Safe." They left the cave behind, the smoke rising fast behind them. The wind howled like a living beast. Dust flew into their faces, cutting their skin. Cale covered Emma with his body, shielding her from the wind. He moved quickly, his steps firm despite the weight. Emma held on to him, whispering soft words to the child inside her. "Just hold on, little one," she said. "We're almost there." After many hours, they found a ridge behind it, a flat plain filled with broken stones and strange shapes buried in the dirt. Metal. Emma blinked through the wind and realized what it was. An old structure. Half buried, ancient and alien. Kale moved quickly toward it. He cleared the entrance and pushed through a heavy stone door. Inside, it was dark, silent, and cold. But it was strong. The walls held against the shaking earth and wind. They were safe. At least for now. Emma sat on a cold platform while Kale explored the inside. The place was full of strange machines, symbols glowing faintly on the walls. She felt the child kicking harder now. The stress was getting to her. Her breath was shallow, her hands trembling. Kale returned with something in his hand, a small, glowing cube. He pressed it into a slot in the wall. Suddenly, soft light filled the room. A hologram appeared, showing maps, planets, stars. One red dot blinked slowly. It was their location. Emma gasped. A signal station. She said. Kale looked at her and nodded. He moved to the controls and began pressing symbols. The light grew brighter, and a deep hum filled the air. Something was working. Power was returning. But then, a warning sound rang out. Red lights flashed around the walls. A defense system had been activated. Turrets emerged from the walls. Scanning for enemies, Kale jumped in front of Emma, holding his arms wide. "Stop," she cried. "He's not the enemy." The machines didn't understand words, but Kale slowly stepped forward and placed his hand on a control panel. It scanned. Him paused, then turned green. The turrets lowered, the lights dimmed. He had passed the test. This was a place made by his people, or by something close to them. The signal was sent. A beam of light shot up into the sky, cutting through the smoke and clouds. Emma fell to her knees, tears in her eyes. "We did it," she whispered. Kale rushed to her side, holding her gently, but there was no time to rest. The floor shook again, harder than before. One of the walls cracked open, and fire rushed through. The gap, the planet itself, was changing, breaking. Kale picked her up again. But this time, his face showed fear. They rushed out of the structure, running across the burning ground behind them. The building collapsed into dust and flames. The signal was sent, but at a high cost. Emma cried out in pain, sharp and sudden. Kale stopped and looked at her. She shook her head. "No," she whispered. "Hey, it's too early." But the child didn't care. Life had chosen this moment, right in the middle of fire, smoke, and shaking ground. Kale laid her down on a bed of soft sand beside a rock wall. He held her hand, whispered soft sounds in his language. Emma screamed again as the sky cracked open above them. Then, silence. A single cry, small and new, filled the air. Their child was born, right there, on a dying planet. Under a sky that burned, a child of two worlds, wrapped in firelight and hope. Emma looked into Kale's eyes. Both of them shaking, but smiling too. He placed the baby in her arms. She held the tiny, warm body close, and whispered, "You are not alone." Emma cradled the newborn close to her chest. The tiny body was warm and soft. His skin was a gentle, mixed light like hers, with a blue tint like Kale's. His eyes were still closed, but his little fingers moved. Emma cried, but the tears were not from pain now. They were from something deeper. Love, hope, life. Kale sat beside her, watching silently, his eyes wide, full of wonder. He reached out and touched the child's hand with one finger. The baby wrapped his tiny fingers around it. Kale's body trembled, but his face lit up. This was his child. Outside, the planet groaned. Rocks fell from cliffs. Fires burned across the horizon, but inside their small shelter of stone, something peaceful had bloomed. Emma whispered, "He's strong." Kale nodded slowly. Then he said a word, broken English, but clear. "Son." Emma smiled through her tears. "Yes," she said, "our son." They wrapped the baby in soft cloth Kale had brought earlier. Emma leaned against a rock wall, exhausted but calm. The baby rested quietly, heartbeat steady, but the world outside was still breaking apart. Suddenly, a high-pitched sound filled the air. It wasn't the wind, It was sharper, mechanical. Emma looked at Cale. He stood up quickly and rushed outside. Emma followed, carrying the baby in her arms. Above them, the clouds had split, and through the red smoke, a ship was descending, big, silver, glowing with clean light. A human rescue ship. The signal had worked. Emma gasped. "They found us," she whispered. Cale didn't move. His body stiffened as the ship landed. Dust swirled around them as the engine slowed. The ramp opened, and 3 figures in suits stepped out. The humans pointed scanners at them. One spoke into a radio. "We found survivors." Then he paused. "Wait, there's an alien with her." Weapons were raised quickly. Cale stepped in front of Emma and the child. His claws flexed, eyes sharp. Emma cried out. "No, stop, he's with me." One of the men spoke sharply. "Ma'am, step away." From the alien, Emma didn't move. She raised her voice. "He saved me. He protected me. He's the father of my child." The soldiers stared in shock. One lowered his weapon slowly. Another stepped forward and looked at the baby. He paused, then called out, "We need a medic now." Within minutes, medics rushed from the ship. They scanned Emma, checked the child, and gave her water and warmth. They tried to pull Cale away, but she shouted again, "He stays or I don't go." There was a long silence. Then a woman in uniform stepped forward. Her voice was calm. "We came to save survivors," she said. "If he's part of your survival, then he comes too." Emma nodded, tears in her eyes. Cale didn't understand all the words, but he understood her face. He walked beside her, still watching every soldier, still ready to protect. Inside the ship, everything felt strange. Clean air, soft lights, metal walls. Emma lay on a soft bed. The baby beside her. Cale sat close, never leaving her side. Doctors examined the child. They were surprised he was healthy, stronger than expected. One doctor whispered, "This child. He's something new." Emma closed her eyes and smiled. "Yes," she said, "he's both of us." As the ship lifted off, they looked down at the burning planet. It was crumbling, but it had given them something no other world could, a new life back on the human base. Things weren't easy. There were questions, tests, meetings. Some people stared at them, unsure, afraid. But others watched with awe. The story spread, a human woman and an alien warrior stranded on a dying world. Surviving together, falling in love. Bringing a child into the galaxy, Emma gave her son a name, Liar. It meant light in an old Earth language. To her, he was the light in the darkness. To Cale, he was a bridge between stars. One day, as they stood in a quiet garden at the edge of the space station, Emma whispered, "I thought I lost everything when my ship crashed." Cale looked at her. "But I found something more," she said. "I found you." Cale took her hand in his. The baby slept quietly between them in a carrier. The stars above shimmered softly. Together, they had faced death, faced fear, faced the unknown, and now they stood not as two lost beings, but as a family, ready for whatever came next. A human, an alien, and the child who would change everything.